Hi again, this is Mike with Palms to Pines Parasports for another episode of Getting Everyone Moving. This is episode 6, and we have a special guest. Amy Burnett. Hey, Amy.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. All right, so tell us, how did you become involved in adaptive sports?
I got involved in adaptive sports almost right after my injury. Of course, in rehab back when I got hurt, which is 24 years ago, they had recreational therapy and you stayed for a much longer visit. So recreational therapy actually took me out. I was probably injured maybe 4 to 6 months. I'm out to watch a wheelchair basketball event that was being held in the town I lived at the time. I was in Lexington, Kentucky. So, and then I met the guys from the team, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. They would take turns picking me up and bringing me to their practices right from rehab. It was kind of a unique situation. I don't think they allow that. Well, obviously not right now, but even in today's settings, I don't think that they let you just check out and go play a sport. So, but yeah.
How did you get injured, and right after you were injured, I mean, how were you feeling?
I got injured in a motor vehicle accident. I actually kind of collided with another car while we were both probably going way too fast over a hill. And they kept going, and I continued to go right out into a field. So I flipped my car several times and ended up a backseat driver. So this is how I sustained my spinal cord injury. So I'm a T6 complete paraplegic and have been for really long time. And then initially I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I'm also pretty smart. When a doctor shows you x-rays of what the damage looks like, you can kind of tell sometimes that this is not reversible. So I kind of right from the beginning knew that I was going to be wheelchair bound the rest of my life. And so I was pretty easy to accept the challenge.
So you were ready to get right out and, I mean, just participate. You had a pretty active life prior to your accident.
Yeah, I was a very highly competitive martial artist. I do judo, hapkido, and taekwondo, or I can say I did. And so that was definitely something that I was looking forward to possibly doing again in the future. Although I've just found different avenues. That's definitely not sports that I'll be doing. I can't use my legs and I have no balance. So basketball it was, and I really never liked basketball. I didn't like it as a child growing up, but I learned that I loved the people and the community and the camaraderie that came out of a sport that I really wasn't in love with. So I kept plucking along. I was never a great player, but I was a great cheerleader. So I would play from the bench and cheer my team on to victories, I would like to say. So that has been the biggest thing for sports in general, I think, for me, maybe my entire life. But so yeah, I started out playing basketball like
But
everybody else.
you played in college, right?
I did. I played for the University of Alabama for about a year and a half, and then kind of changed roles and switched universities to get a different degree. So I didn't stick with that university. I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington, and they now have a women's wheelchair basketball team, but they didn't at the time I was there.
But you play tennis, you do cycling, and you're one of the few para badminton players in the US as well. Can you talk a little bit about all of those sports and what they do for you?
Yeah, it's been kind of fun just being able to be in locations where so many different things are offered. I know if I grew up in a really small town in Arkansas, and I lived there for a very brief time during my injury, and there was nothing there. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and so I'm, there's a lot of different sports I can actually just say, hey, I want to go try sledge hockey. I didn't like it. It's cold. It wasn't for me, but the door was open. at least I had the opening to do that. And I lived in Atlanta for a while, so I got to try fencing. And after so many pokes to this special area that we all need, I was like, no, it's not for me. But hey, I got to try it. I've tried, and one of my best friends is a table tennis player, and I've tried that. And after playing badminton for a little while, and the shuttle, when you miss it and it drops and it lands right by you, you kind of become a little spoiled, because if you play table tennis, the balls are everywhere. And I play tennis as well. And I'm like, I'm so tired of chasing balls. I just love being able to reach down and grab this shuttle.
But talk a little bit more about that experience. You're part of a committee for para badminton, or yeah.
I am actually on the board of directors for USA Badminton. They opened up a new position on the board that needed to be filled by a para athlete, and I qualified for that position. It was either me or a 13-year-old little boy. I say little boy, I guess he's a teenager, but so I gladly accepted that position, and now I'm part of the athletes advisory committee for USA Badminton, and I'm on the high performance athlete advisory as well. So I do have a little bit of a hand in some of the things that are going on, I guess, behind the scenes. I'm not part of the USOPC. I'd love to do that one day, but it's really nice just getting my feet in the water right now with just badminton, and trying to grow the sport, and make sure that the para athletes get all of the luxuries that all of the able-bodied athletes get. Of course, this is a small sport with no money, so there's not a whole lot of luxuries, but we're trying to get them. And so it's been quite nice. There's been a whole turnover of the board, a lot of new board members, and a lot of people that are just really focused on getting good things for our athletes, like sponsorships and those hard things that nobody loves trying to do, but we have to do it, right?
How how do we get more people, of different varying abilities? I mean, just involved in, participating in sports. I mean, how do we create more inclusion, throughout society as well?
Yeah, it's really difficult to answer that question, because I am currently, and have been for the last 5 years, the only wheelchair player on the team. It's a strange sport where we have standing divisions as well. So there's several players on our team. Just I'm the only wheelchair player, and I think first of all we have to get more recognition. We have to be in more places, talking to more people. And of course, we have to offer something, because people come if you offer them something. And that's really hard to do when there's no money in the budget. So, yeah, that's a really tough question. I mean, basketball is king, so there's so many places that offer it. And one of the things I'm doing on the board right now is trying to get involved with Move United. That's a huge organization and a wonderful organization, and they've done a lot of things this year with Zoom that I've been able to take part in. And so they have a big all sports type thing coming up in Colorado, and I'm trying to get us a seat at the table there, with bringing rackets and shuttles for all of these people, because I myself in my car have 3 nets and probably 25 rackets and a plethora of shuttles, and I will play with anybody, anytime, any day, anywhere. So I'm always on the ready anytime. And I think we just need more people that are like-minded, that have the wherewithal to say, hey, you know what? It's hard to get a whole lot of people to come to this one thing. But if we can get one person with all of the things needed to go to one person, or a small group of people, then that might be a transitional shift that might actually work better. And now we have to have small groups anyway.
We're looking forward to you and Robert coming out to Coachella Valley and really starting some badminton here. you've participated out here in, tennis and cycling and such. And yeah, we just need to grow the community. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you are in a great location with a lot of great people. You yourself are just amazing, and I'm so glad that you're there growing things and doing things. I've so enjoyed all of the Facebook posts and things and the YouTube stuff that you're doing now. It really, even though I'm not there, I feel like I'm still part of the community. I just love being there. So I'm excited to come back. Can't, can't come quick enough.
You will soon enough. Now you've also been through a number of operations, I mean, on your body. What advice, what do you do to kind of, stay really enthusiastic and positive? And what advice would you give to other people who are in a similar situation to yourself?
Yeah, it's luckily I was born with a pretty upbeat and positive attitude. I am one of those who wakes up with a smile on my face every morning, and I'm just super grateful that I have one more day to enjoy my life here on this earth. But I do a lot of internal processing and thinking, and I've had so many surgeries just due to botched surgeries or whatnot. I think I'm probably up in the 20 surgery range.
Mm.
And I just had three pretty significant surgeries in the last 8 weeks. So, but look at me now.
Yeah.
um, uh, and it is difficult for, I think, everybody when you're told, especially like in our community, lots of us get pressure sores and we're told you have to go lay down and you can do nothing for a long time. But that's where I do most of my mental training as well, because even if you're not playing your sport, you can be shadow playing it. You can be mentally thinking about it. So even though I'm not getting to participate out on court, I've won plenty of matches. And it's nice because it just helps me keep positivity going. I have notes on all of the people that I've ever played, and so I read those notes over and over and over. Although a lot of the other countries are continuing to get to play right now. Those girls that I play are probably so much better than they were in those little notes I have. But that's the things that I do. I also pray a lot, and I do yoga and some mental and mindfulness things that I think everybody should do. It's one of those situations where when you talk about love, and if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. Well, I do a lot of positive talking to myself, learning just to love myself. It's really hard to be, you almost feel arrogant. I love myself, but if you can't really love yourself, you can't give love to anybody else. So I really speak highly when I'm thinking to myself of myself, and that I think resonates well with me and helps me bring some positivity to other people.
I know you really have a lot of support in your life too. I mean, Robert, very supportive. Your parents really supportive. How have those, people who are you're closest to in your life really helped you to just continue to move forward and be this positive force in the adaptive sport community?
Yeah, my fiance is, bless his heart. He has to put up with a lot around here. I'm sure people probably feel sorry for him, but I love him to death. And I tease and pick on him all the time. And I tell him that's how I show you how much I love you. But I have been super blessed that I do have parents that love me and check on me, and my mom sends me notes all the time telling me that she just I inspire her all of the time. And it's so nice to get things like that from your loved ones, that they really care about you and that they're there for you. I have a huge support group of wheelchair friends as well, that if I have a problem, I have you know like, for example, Pam Fontaine. She's very similar injury as me. She was one of my biggest, I guess, idols playing wheelchair basketball. My coaches would always say, "See that girl over there? You need to play like her." So I watched her a lot and became very familiar with the way that she played. And from a a distance, I would admire her. And I finally met her, and now she's one of my bestest friends in the world, but she's aging with the disability. And so am I now. And so I can call her and say, hey, how do you do this? Because it used to be, hey, how do you get your chair in a car? And now we're like, what kind of ramp van do you have? It's hard to swallow your pride and go, I need a ramp van. But to be able to do as much as I want to do throughout the day, I've learned for me that it is a lot easier on my shoulders. I can go more places and get things done. So just having a community of friends that know what you're going through it's really key. And that's the main thing about, just ties right back into why I started playing the sports and getting involved, because it was the only place I really knew I could go where there were people with disabilities. There weren't the huge, Facebook wasn't out. There wasn't all of these support groups that you could just chime in all the time. I had to go every Monday night to play wheelchair basketball and make friends. And then hopefully they'd see me outside or want to go do something with me later, or go camping or do something different, because there's so many things that aren't sports that I didn't know how to do. Camping. How do you go camping if you're in a wheelchair? Well, you pack your stuff up and you just go, and you hope that you don't fall in some mud, and just having people like yourself that really cares about this community, that really shows us the love and honor and respect that some of us deserve, because we're all deserving of somebody to treat us with loving, open arms and kindness, and just want to help us in general. And if there were more people like you in the world, this world would be such a better place.
Yeah, I tend to say that about other people. You were fortunate, you were able to play collegiate level sport. But, as we know, there are a handful of programs throughout the country. How would you go about trying to encourage more universities, to start programs? I mean, why should they do it?
I think one of the reasons why they should do it is because it's needed. If there's so few universities that have these programs, it's so competitive to even get in and to get a spot. And then a lot of the spots, unfortunately, do go to people from other countries. And so that minimizes the spots there as well. And it's really difficult when you see a young girl or boy and they're growing up and they're playing wheelchair basketball, and they have these huge hopes and dreams that they're going to get to play for one of these universities, and then they don't make it in. And it's a really sad process to watch a child go through, that they didn't get into the school they wanted so that they could continue to play the sport at a collegiate level. If there were more schools that were doing it, I think that there would be a higher success rate of education amongst the community. I went to college because I was smart enough to know that I needed school. I was actually a sophomore in college when I had my car accident, but it took me years of trying to find my path. I mean, I graduated high school in '93. I graduated college in 2010. There's a big gap between there, but wheelchair sports was one of the things that got me back in school and back on track to being able to become, successful as an adult. Adulting is hard, and going to a university kind of gets you where your mom is not telling you to do everything. That you have to do things on your own to become successful. And more sports programs for the disabled community as a whole, I do believe would have a higher success rate of education for sure.
Well, given that, I mean, you're a really major athlete, you participate in a number of sports. I mean, what are some of the life lessons that you personally learned and been able to apply, just from playing sports, but applying to, just life in general?
It's kind of like training for a sport. If you want to do well, then you have to put the time in and the effort in. and not just when coach is there. It's doing things at home and on your own. And without that extra help, then you'll just become stagnant. Um, so a life lesson for me was, I have to do things on my own. If I can't just have somebody telling me what to do, I can't just practice on Monday night with the group. I have to be on my own, training mentally, physically, and, just overall wellness for my body, how I fuel my body, how I have to take care of my body. And just like most people, I'm prone to pressure sores and all of the weight gain and all of these things that can be a huge damper on your life. Right now I have osteoporosis and I keep having leg fractures doing absolutely nothing. So it's just one of those things where I think that the person that I became from being able to pick myself up after losing big tournaments. I mean, I went to the Paralympian games and I lost several matches, and that's okay. Just having to learn to say, that's okay. I made it to the stage. I made it to where a lot of people would like to be. And yes, I didn't win that match, but overall, being there is a win. It's hard to say that and it's hard to admit that, but it's true, and you just have to believe that. And if I hadn't lost several games with several of my teammates playing wheelchair basketball, I would not be able to probably play the sport I do now, because it's individual and I don't have, I'm the only wheelchair player. So I'm the only one over in that little group. And when I lose by myself, and I don't have all of my friends surrounding me, giving me the love that that you need, that lifts you back up. So I just think that overall the camaraderie that you get, you can take it with you and you can apply it anywhere else in any other situation. There are people that love you and care about you, and you have to stay positive to be able to flourish.
What would you say to someone who's, just had an accident, spinal cord injury, maybe they've had an amputation? I mean, how would you motivate that person to kind of say, life is not over?
Yeah, I would first look at him and say, gosh, you're already better off than I am. You're going to get the coolest prosthetic limb I've ever seen. I have seen some that are, I mean, if it's a girl and she's a girly, I have seen some of the prettiest bedazzled legs, like rhinestones, that I have literally thought, that'd be pretty cool to have. But it all depends on if the person is athletic, or if the person is musical, or what the person's kind of into. If the person's into dance, that there's several people dancing that are dancing on prosthetic limbs now, and it's just absolutely beautiful to watch. So I do mentor at Stallworth here in Nashville, which is it's the spinal cord rehab for Vanderbilt Hospital. And when the physical therapists or occupational therapists reach out to me, some of the questions I ask are these questions. I like to know, there's HIPAA laws. I don't need to know their names, and I don't need to know all of that. I really want to know, what's their background? What were they passionate about? So that when I go in there to talk to them, I can be talking to them already about things that are going to apply. It's like, for example, Chelsea Hill, she was a dancer. And if I had gone in and started talking to her about wheelchair basketball, she might have not have been interested. But if I went in and showed her this girl who's now Chelsea Hill, this applies and will resonate and give somebody some hope and courage. Of course, they all want to walk and do stuff. And if it's if it's somebody that has an amputation, then, more than likely they're going to get back up on their feet, and life will be a little bit different than, and those conversations would be a little bit easier maybe than with somebody that's, for example, like me, a high level paraplegic with, loss of lots of functions there. But I would be super stoked to talk to somebody and be able to tell them a little bit about all the different things there are out there. And a lot of times, it is really difficult when you meet somebody that maybe isn't an amputation, say they just had hip replacement. And I say, you could play wheelchair basketball, and they feel awkward because they don't use a wheelchair. But when I tell them how the point system works and how they are really somebody that they would need on their team, this isn't something where you feel like you're dumbing it down, for lack of a better term. This is something where you can't really play standing. I mean, Andrea Woodson's got hip problems, and she's one of the best wheelchair basketball players I personally know. But I can only imagine, she was training for the Olympics, literally, and then her hips went out on her. So she is that person you'd be having a conversation with, and look at her now,
Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing her in a future episode. So what would you, as we kind of wrap things up, I mean, what would you say just to people, how would we create, more inclusion and actually develop more opportunities so that, a person of whatever ability is able to participate more in society?
I think that the people like yourselves who are wanting to start these nonprofit organizations really should get together, band together, know each other. Because, for example, I travel all over the United States, and so I'm sprinkling myself in all of these different areas, and I get to see all of these different programs. And some of the programs I see, I think, wow, that person running that program has such a compassionate drive. And then I go to other programs and they're not successful. And I think if that person running that program had a little bit more drive to want to reach out and talk to people like you're reaching out in all kinds of ways. And if those ways were shared amongst the community of people that are starting these programs, then I think, it would help grow. I mean, there just needs to be, a medium, a forum once at least a year where all of you guys got together and talked about what you're doing in your programs, how you're reaching out. I think that, that's a start. I try to help as much as I can, but I don't know all of the people that do, that are the directors of these programs. And so, when I go talk to somebody, I could be talking to somebody that's a director and not even know them. So I think that getting you guys together and talking would help, because if you look at Angel City Sports, they've got all of these sports and all of these people. Of course, there's a huge number of people that live there versus Nashville, Tennessee, but we have lots of programs here in Nashville, and it's amazing how many people don't know that. I think Nashville, Tennessee, in my opinion, has the largest wheelchair sports program in the United States.
Oh,
I would say in the general area, there's probably a number around 150 of us in chairs or that are amputees that play some type of adaptive sport. And we have a huge sponsorship program here. And a lot of disabled people move to this town for this reason. I'm here. So.
Well, and University of Tennessee is trying to start some programming too, I believe. So part of it, I think, Amy, is around college towns. Like I know in Tucson, there's a lot of people who use a wheelchair for mobility, or, UTA, or down at University of Alabama. And so I think, we talked about colleges a little bit, but getting a college really involved
keeping them involved, because I know here and just outside of Nashville is Murfreesboro, where Middle Tennessee State University is, and they had a wheelchair tennis program for years, but after years they drop it. So, just getting them involved and keeping them involved. I know currently several of the universities in Arizona are picking up badminton players and recruiting them, giving them scholarships. They're not type specific, so they don't say gender, or they don't say disabled or non-disabled, but it is to my understanding that if a disabled person wanted to play in their program, if they qualified and they were recruited and wanted, then they could get that spot. So that's pretty interesting. It's making me think about my degree. Maybe I should go back.
So do you have any final words for just in general for anyone?
Yeah, if you're out there and you're interested and you're thinking about wanting to play a sport, I Google it, because everything, you can Google tell you anything anymore. You can find something in your vicinity. If you're interested in wheelchair basketball, please contact me. You can find me on social media. I would love to come to you or send a person in your vicinity out to you. It's a great sport. I know people, of course, they're able-bodied, but I know people in their 90s that are playing this sport. This is one of the sports that it's a longevity sport. Wheelchair basketball, there's kind of a time frame on that where your body finally says, you can't do this anymore. I had to retire. I play wheelchair tennis, but I don't sweat. So being outside in the heat kind of really bothers me, especially as I'm aging. But badminton, we play that inside. And there's so many of these other sports that are popping up, like bocce ball and things that, I suggest that you find a mentor. You get on social media. If you find somebody that you're liking the way that they talk about things, send them a message, get a mentor, get a buddy, and go play sports with them.
Well, this has been terrific. Thanks, Amy. And, obviously we're all looking so forward to you and Robert coming as soon as you can.
We love the Coachella Valley. We will be there. I don't know if we'll ever leave if we come back.
Good. All right. Take good care.
Thanks.